Can you hear me now? Hopefully. Okay, we're going to make this interactive. Anytime anyone has a question throughout the presentation, especially when I'm speaking about a particular topic, apparently there's a way for you to raise your hand and you will be unmuted, and I want you to ask the questions throughout. So let's go to the next step. Okay, so right now we're in October. It's a time when students are putting together the college lists. They're beginning to, I guess, work on their common apps, senior parents. I would expect we have senior parents, junior parents, and also sophomore and freshman parents in the audience, hopefully, because the sooner you get started, the better. October is also the launch date for the financial aid forms. The financial aid forms are the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. If you haven't heard about the FAFSA, you're going to hear about it a lot tonight. There is another form called the CSS profile. Just to distinguish between the two, the FAFSA is a form that is required by all roughly 4,800 colleges and universities in the US. It is a federal form, and its intended purpose is to have the federal government, the Department of Education, to distribute federal financial aid. I'm going to tell you from the start, there's not a lot of federal financial aid to go around, and most of you probably will never see much, if any. The idea that the forms become available on October 1st doesn't mean you have to hit the ground running. It's good to get started, though. My suggestion is that you try to get the forms completed by the beginning of December. There are three ways that students are going to apply to college. They're going to apply early action, early decision, and regular application. Many schools will have what they're going to refer to as a priority filing deadline. You have to become familiar and make yourself aware of those deadline dates, vitally important. Some of the schools will have November 15th as a priority filing deadline. In that case, you need to get the form completed and submitted before that date. They will automatically receive the student aid report as long as they're named on the FAFSA. The intention or the idea of applying early action or early decision is to give the schools an early look so that your extraordinarily gifted son or daughter will get a first look. The schools will look at those early applications, make a decision, and probably offer an acceptance, hopefully by the middle of December. Look at the bottom of this screen. You'll notice the date, May 1st. I just want you to make a note of that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Federal student aid, as I said, limited, not much to go around. You have to really show that you're eligible. And the eligibility is determined by your income. Your income as reported, senior parents, on your 2021 tax return. Figure for a moment. Your students are going to start attending college in the fall of 2023. So this is referred to as prior. 2023, they're looking for 2 years prior, the 2021 tax return. That's the information that they're going to use as a basis for your financial aid offer. There is state financial aid. State financial aid from the state of New Jersey. If you're a New Jersey resident and your student decides to attend school in the state of New Jersey, whether it's a private or a public school, you might be considered for state financial aid. Merit aid. Merit aid is the money that the colleges are able to dig deep into their pockets to share with you. There's a lot to go around, and that's really the area that I would focus on the most. It is the most logical step to getting financial aid. Outside scholarships, well, your guidance counselors can tell you about scholarship night, which typically will happen in the spring of 23. And of course, there are some tax benefits that are available. I'll mention them a little bit later. So financial aid, and again, ask any questions throughout the presentation. Financial aid would include grants, which is money that does not have to be paid back. Financial aid includes work study, and that's the opportunity for the student to work on campus under the guidance of the financial aid office. You have to complete the FAFSA in order to qualify for work study. Loans, not my favorite choice, and the scholarships that are awarded by Merit Aid. So how do I get it? How much can I get and how do I apply? The primary form that you'll need to complete is called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. I'm going to take you through some of the steps and some of the screenshots that you'll experience as you sign on to the FAFSA to start working on it. And again, only senior parents whose students will begin attending college in the fall of 2023 should be concerned at this point about accessing the FAFSA form. On the FAFSA form, you will be asked to create an ID and a password. The ID and the password, you need one for the student and one for a parent. There's a good reason for that. The primary reason at the bottom of the screen you'll see is the data retrieval tool. As you're filling out the FAFSA, the parent is expected to provide the numbers on their 2021 tax return. Well, it's good to have a copy of your tax return handy when you're filling out the FAFSA, and connecting through the data retrieval tool to the IRS website to populate the FAFSA is something that the parent will do using the parent's ID and password. So again, you'll need a student ID and password, and you'll need an ID for the parent, ID and password. So the website you're going to go to is FAFSA.gov. That stands again for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. As I said, have your 2021 tax return. It's not too difficult an approach. Once you click on the FAFSA.gov website, and again, don't Google it because Google will take you to many areas astray. You don't want to put any personal information into a website that is not the intended place to go. On the FAFSA.gov website, you'll see at the top of the page, complete the FAFSA form, and that white box says Start Here. When you click the Start Here button, it's going to ask you, excuse me, let me back up one quick screen for a moment. It says Start Here or Log In. Log In is for returning users. What I'll say about the FAFSA again is as you begin to work on and complete the FAFSA, it's going to save your work. Every time you press the key at the bottom of the screen that says continue, anything that you've already entered is going to be saved until the next time you come and access it. It's going to ask you one of three questions. Am I a student who wants to access the FAFSA? Am I a parent filling out the FAFSA for a student, or am I a preparer? I will tell you that any one of these will take you to the same place. So I typically would simply click the first one. I am a student wanting to complete the FAFSA, even if you're the parent trying to help the student. And after answering one of those three questions, it's going to give you the default login to continue, or directly below, create an ID and password. So you'll drop down the arrow to the second box if you haven't already completed the ID and password. And you'll begin by parents having your students sit next to you in front of the computer. Start with the student first. Click on that Create an FSA ID. It's going to ask you to enter the student's name, first name, last name, social, date of birth, and it's going to ask you for their email address. You can only use one email address to get an ID and a password. So parents, you're going to have to provide your email address. Student will have to prepare his or her email address. Parents often make a mistake that they're starting to apply for an ID and password for their son or daughter. Parent enters their ID and password, fills out the information for the student, and then finds that there's no way to get their own ID and password unless they have a second email address. Is there a question? All good? Okay, so you're going to click on the ID and a password tab right below the login to continue. And you're going to click on the Create an Account, Get Started. You're going to need your own Social Security number. You're going to need your own cell phone number. And again, your own email address. You're going to need that for your student and parents when you do yours, your social, your cell phone, your email address. Once you've got,
we do have a quick question. I'm just going to open it up for Ms. Deutsch.
Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just got confused when you were saying that you need one email address, or was it one for the student and then one as the parent has her own ID?
Correct. Yes, correct. So what you'll do, Suzanne, is you'll have your student sitting next to you in front of the computer. You'll go into FAFSA.gov, enter I am the student looking to access the FAFSA, click on create an ID and a password. Now you're doing this for your student with your student sitting next to you. You're going to enter your student's information, his or her first name, last name, social, date of birth, and email address. Reason is that your son or daughter will receive an email in the process of applying for his or her ID. Once they receive an email, it's going to contain a 6 numerical digit secure code. And you're going to have to enter that 6-digit secure code into the application process. Once you complete the student's ID and password, send them on their way. Now you're going to go back in as yourself. You're going to go in, FAFSA.gov. I am the student if you wish, it doesn't matter. Click on create an ID and a password. Now you're entering your information, Suzanne, your social, your email address, your cell phone number. And you're going to get your own ID and password, separate from your son or daughter.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So once you have the ID and the password, you're going to go back into FAFSA.gov. You're going to click start here because you're returning now. You're going to enter the ID that you've selected. You can either use the ID, the username, email address, or phone number. You're going to enter the password and click log in. You're going to get the dashboard. The dashboard is simply a bunch of, as far as I'm concerned, unnecessary information. At the very top of the page, it says apply for aid. You're going to select the apply for aid button, and it's going to take you to the beginning of the FAFSA. Now, if you've already completed the FAFSA, you're going to be able to access the processed student aid report. So this screen gives you the option, the 3 as you see below. One is update your school information. The next one is edit or change any of the information that you've already provided, or view the processed student aid report. Now, why is this important? Well, the FAFSA gives you the option to list 10 schools. Suppose your son or daughter applies to 12 or 15 schools. You'll complete the FAFSA with 10 schools and submit it. Once your son or daughter gets the email saying that it's been successfully processed, you're going to go back into the FAFSA. You're going to go to the dashboard. You're going to update the school information or edit the FAFSA. The intention here is to delete some of those 10 schools that you previously entered and add those schools that you want to enter. As I said, if your son or daughter applies to more than 10 schools. If for a moment, when reviewing the student aid report, you see that there was an error made, you can go back into the second option, edit the FAFSA. Clicking on edit the FAFSA takes you to the screen where you can change any of the information that you've already provided. Good? Okay. Once it's processed and you click the button that says view the student aid report, you'll see a screen that looks something like this. It is the processed student aid report, and the tabular form at the bottom asks for student's last name, student's first name. On the right, you'll see the answers that you provided. You'll need to correct anything that you might see by going back into the original screen and clicking the edit button. Good so far? Anybody already complete the FAFSA? Anybody already start working on it? If you have any questions, notice at the bottom of the screen, I've provided my contact information. If you're stuck on something, feel free to send me an email. Telephone number is my cell. You can send me a text or give me a call if you're really in a pinch. So the purpose of the FAFSA.
We just had another question.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think somebody put their hand down though. So.
Okay. Well, if they decide.
Oh, no, we're back up. We're back up.
Okay, good. Monica, how are you?
Okay. Hi, I do have a question. So I started completing the FAFSA, and yesterday, I think I did something wrong. I selected the second choice. I said, I am the parent filling this out for the student.
That's
Did
fine.
I have to go back?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So if you selected I am the parent filling it out for the student, again, remember, the FAFSA is a form that you're going to answer the questions as if you are the student, even if it's the parent completing it. It is the student's FAFSA form. So when you get into the FAFSA, you will, or you should, be given the opportunity to provide your son or daughter's first name, last name, social, date of birth, address, and so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you do that, even as entering as the parent, because you're completing the FAFSA as the student. So whether you enter the FAFSA form as a student or as a parent or as a preparer, make sure that you always start off by providing the student information, because the first few screens of the FAFSA is asking for the student. Good.
Right, I did that, but I never got a number, like the number that you were talking about that he was supposed to get. We never got that.
Okay, did you apply for the ID and the password?
When I selected the second choice, no, it didn't give me that option. Though.
Okay,
I did not. No, I did not.
All right. So in that case, you can see the screen, right? You have to go to another screen. If you can read it, it says www.fsaid.ed.gov.
Yes.
Hey, hang up, make sure you write that down. When we're after this meeting, go to that website. Again, I'm going to suggest that you sit down with your son or daughter next to you. And you, once you get to that screen, you're going to click the button that says Get Started. Once you click Get Started, you're going to wind up with the opportunity to create an ID and a password. You're going to do it first for your son or daughter. Then after he or she leaves, you're going to then begin the process again. Now it's in that application process that you're going to receive the 6-digit numerical secure code.
Got it. Okay.
And then every time you return to the FAFSA, make sure you go into the FAFSA using your son or daughter's ID and password. And you'll find yourself right where you left off.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so again, student aid report, review it, make sure there's no errors, and you can go back and edit it. Now, the purpose of completing the FAFSA is to arrive at a number. The number is referred to as EFC, or expected family contribution. The expected family contribution is a number that the Department of Education assigns, and it is a number to guide you as to what you should expect to pay for 1 year for one student to go to college. It's going to be based on your income as reported on your 2021 tax return, senior parents. Junior parents, it's going to be on your 2022 tax return, which you're not going to begin preparing until the first quarter of next year. So again, it's based on your 2021 tax return, and the numbers will populate the FAFSA using the parent's ID and password using the data retrieval tool. It will also ask you what your savings and investments look like. Now, this is where I think the FAFSA gets interesting. This is a copy of the 2021 tax return. The information they're going to base your financial aid package on is going to be from line 11 toward the bottom of this page. Line 11 is called the adjusted gross income. So I'm going to give an example of how we arrive at an EFC, or expected family contribution. This is a family of 4. As you can see on this tax return at the top, John Q. Public and Susie Q. Their children are Dick and Jane. So what we're saying on the top left-hand corner, first of all, ignore that 2021 tax return. I got to fix that slide. It says they are New Jersey residents. They have 2 kids. One will be going to college. Both parents are age 50 years old, and their adjusted gross income is $100,000. Their savings and investments amount to $50,000. So let's start with the income. Income is the larger component of the two numbers that are going to determine your expected family contribution. The income in this case is $100,000. Now, at $100,000, or really at any figure, they're going to look at the family size. That's why I have up here 2 parents, 2 kids. So it's a family of 4. A family of 4 is given an allowance for the size of the family. Family of 5 is given an allowance. Family of 6, and so on. But just for argument's sake, a family of 4 is given a family allowance of $28,000. So what we're saying here, or what the Department of Education is saying, is that looking at the entire nation, it is expected that a family of 4 can live on $28,000 a year. Crazy number, huh? $28,000 is the allocation that they take off of the adjusted gross income that is reported. So in this case, you have $100,000. They're going to knock $28,000 off of that, and you're going to be assessed at $72,000. Now, that number, $72,000, they're going to use anywhere from 22 to 47% to arrive at the EFC. Why such a range? Well, starting at the number of $30,000 in adjusted gross income, you're at 22%. It rises to 47% when you hit the $70,000 number. So what we're saying at $72,000, 47% of that, what's that work out to, about 33,000 ballpark? So right off the bat, with 100,000 family of 4, forgiving the first $28,000, your expected family contribution is already $33,000. That's what you're expected to be able to afford to pay for one student for 1 year. Not even factoring in your savings and investments. On this example, I'd mentioned that the family has $50,000 in savings and investments. Well, there's another allowance. It's called an age-based allowance. The age-based allowance, as an example, we'll look at the older of the 2 parents. At the age of 50, roughly the first $50,000 is not counted. This family has $50,000. Both parents are age 50, therefore it's not factored in at all. Now, it rises by about $1,100 to $1,200 for every year over the age of 50. So by the time a parent, or the older of the 2 parents, is 60 years old, you're figuring that they will not consider the first $60,000 or so when figuring the EFC. But in this case, again, we're looking at $100,000, family of 4, or $72,000 based on a 47% assessment. And we're looking at an EFC, roughly speaking, of about $25,000. So how important is this number, EFC? Well, I'm going to say it's only a number. It doesn't mean anything. It's no obligation on the part of the college to help you pay for the gap, the difference between a cost to attend the college or what you're expected to pay. It's only a number. Crazy, but that's what it is. What do we do with that number? So we're going to look at the cost of a college. Now, every school is going to publish their cost of attendance. The cost of attendance, and you know, tuition varies from school to school. Room and board, books, supplies, transportation to and from the school, personal expenses. Your son or daughter may have a meal plan when they get to school, but they still want to go out for a cup of coffee with their friends. They're still going to want to go to a movie or a concert. So those are personal expenses because the student is going to be living away from home. They're also going to factor in fees and other costs. So let's figure for a moment. I have 2 daughters and a son. My oldest daughter went to school in Philadelphia. So to get her from northern New Jersey to Philadelphia, yeah, we drove her down, but there were tolls, gas, and other expenses that we incurred along the way. That's why they include transportation to and from. Books and supplies. The school figured that part of the cost of attendance might be about $1,500 or so for books. Hers were only $850. So the idea is the cost of attendance is also an arbitrary number that has somewhat of a range. And again, what are we looking to do with the cost of attendance? We're looking to see how to match it up with the expected family contribution. So let's look at an example. Far left, cost of attendance at an Ivy League school, $58,000. Work your way to the right, room and board, another $17,000. Books and supplies, $1,500. Transportation, $1,400. Personal expenses, $1,600. Working all the way to the right, cost of attendance, $78,000. Look at the private. Again, lower tuition and fees, lower room and board, lower books and supplies, and so on. So every school has its own cost of attendance. So what do we do with the cost of attendance? We're going to take the cost of attendance and we're going to subtract out the expected family contribution. Now, again, cost of attendance will vary from school to school, but the EFC is constant. Your family is still a family of 4. Your adjusted gross income is still $100,000. Your savings is still $50,000. So your EFC remains the same. One other factor that comes into play is if the student has income and if the student has savings, and that's a mistake that many parents make. You really can't load the student up with a lot of savings and investments. It's going to hurt you financial aid-wise. But the student in this case earns $3,000. Student can earn up to $6,000 and still not be assessed. Student savings is assessed from $1. Let's look at the difference between the two. I mentioned to you earlier that the parent's income is assessed at 22 to 47%. A student's income over $6,000 is assessed at 50%. A parent's assets, savings and investments, assessed at a little bit under 6%. Student's assets, 20 cents on the dollar. So you don't want to have the student earn too much money, and you don't want to have the student have too much in their name. So let's see how we determine financial aid. Again, EFC comes from income and savings on your 21 tax return. Cost of attendance is all in. So we'll take the cost of attendance, we'll subtract from it the expected family contribution. Let's look at these examples. We know that the parent's expected family contribution is $25,000. So if you notice about the middle of the screen, EFC, $25,000 across the board. That's the constant. Let's look at the cost of attendance. If a community college is $5,000 a year, but the parent is expected to be able to afford $25,000 for 1 year for one student, work your way down, their need is $0. State college, $26,000 cost of attendance, $25,000 is what they're expected. Their need is $1,000. Now that doesn't mean that any college is going to make up that gap. They're not going to make up that need. That's why I say in the beginning that the EFC is nothing more than a number. Look all the way to the right. The elite college, $60,000. Expected family contribution, $25,000. And the need is $35,000. Well, who's going to come up with that money? And that's where financial aid is important. Now, again, I mentioned earlier, federal financial aid really is reserved for those people expressing the most need. And by need, I'm talking about an adjusted gross income of about $30,000 or less. The federal financial aid offered to families who make less than $30,000 include a Pell Grant. Pell Grant is somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000. There's something called the SEOG grant, which is another $4,000. Anyone who fills out the FAFSA, no matter what your income is, going to be offered direct federal loans. Again, I hate loans, but these are loans that really should consider taking. They're very worthwhile. So you're looking at a financial aid package from the federal government that could be as much as $17,000. That includes $5,500 in loans for freshmen. And again, that's not going to pay for college. But let's look at this screen in a different light. We're still looking at community college, state college, private, and elite. Let's look at it in this light. Look at the elite column. Now, keep in mind, colleges operate for profit. That's why they exist. They don't do what they do in their good graces. They're profit centers. So the elite colleges are able to, the elite colleges are able to charge $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 and even more. And the elite colleges attract the brightest and the best. The elite colleges receive thousands, 25, 30,000 applications, 4.0 grade point averages, perfect SAT scores. How is your student going to compete to get into that college? Well, I look at it a different way. I look at the colleges as competing for your son or daughter, especially if they've done well academically. And why I'm saying that, let's look at the private school for a moment. Private school, again, it's a profit center. Private school is charging $50,000 a year. Private school is receiving applications from students with a 3.4, 3.5 grade point average, not all 4.0. Private colleges are going to put incentive money on the table. And that incentive money is to attract students of a higher caliber. I'll give you an idea. You've heard of Rider University. Rider is about an hour, hour and a half south of here. Rider University on their website lists the presidential scholar. And what they're saying, if you're applying to Rider University and you have a 3.2 or 3.3 grade point average or better, apply. Why? At that level, you're a presidential scholar. Presidential scholar, they're literally going to cut the cost of attendance at Rider University in half. Why? Rider University wants to become an elite. Rider University wants to raise their level of GPA averages for freshman incoming students. So if Rider University can elevate from a 3.2, 3.3 on average incoming freshman class to, let's say, a 3.5 or 3.6, they might be able to bump up the cost because now they're considered a little bit of a higher caliber school. Their ultimate goal is to become an elite. They want to become a Princeton, a Yale, a Harvard, an Emory, a Duke, a GW. They want to become a school with a huge endowment. They want to become a school that turns away 4.0 grade point average level students. They want to be able to charge $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year to attend. The same thing for the $26,000 school. They're looking to become the private college level. They're looking to raise their average incoming class GPA from a 2.8 to a 3.3. How do they do that? Offer incentives. So Rider publishes it, and a number of other schools do publish it too. And in essence, what they're saying is they're saying, if you come to our school, we'll accept you and we'll cut the price drastically because we want your caliber of student. Now, what I'll say to you is, even students with a 2.5 grade point average, they can find a school that is looking for that level and is willing to pay. I'm going to call it the student signing bonus. That's merit aid. Merit aid is the incentive to come to their school because your son or daughter is making that school look good. These schools are in competition for your students. And that's the way you got to look at it. I hear from parents all the time, and they're telling me, we don't want to apply to that school because it's too expensive. We could never afford it. But wait a minute. If you apply to that school, and if your son or daughter is above average, they're going to cut the price and make it affordable. They're going to make it work. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, they all have a policy that they will accept any student regardless of their ability to pay. And if a Northeast United States student applies to Harvard with a 4.0 grade point average, they may not get in. Yet someone who might apply from Idaho or New Mexico with a 3.8 grade point average might get into Harvard. Why? Harvard is looking for diversity, geographical diversity, economic diversity. We will accept anyone, whether they can afford to pay or not. So the idea is your son or daughter shouldn't be shooting for the stars. Your son or daughter applies to these elite schools, and these schools do not have to give away financial aid because they get the best of the best. They don't need to distribute merit aid to bright students who are above average. These elite colleges are already at the top of the hill. They will give their enormous amounts of wealth away to any student who can't afford it. Any questions here? Okay. Who's eligible? U.S. citizen, permanent resident, high school graduate, the GED or a high school degree. Valid Social Security number. It says males registered for the selective service. Well, they did away with that. This was last year. They did away with the requirement for a boy to register for the draft. They also did away with the question, are you a male or female? There's a number of other questions, and every single year they do change the FAFSA slightly. And next year, they're going to change the FAFSA and change the name of expected family contribution and make certain other changes. So what is financial aid?
Oh, we do have one question from Ms.
Sure.
Luzzi.
Yep. Hello there, Jennifer. Jennifer, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm so sorry. Regarding the student income and savings, if your child has a 529, does that have to be declared on the form?
Okay, it's a great question. And let me put it in this manner. There are different ways to hold assets to benefit the student. There is an account that is referred to Uniform Gift to Minors account, UGMA. In New York, it's called a UTMA, Uniform Trust to Minors account. And that is an account that is set up in the name of the student. Though the student is a minor, a parent is named as the custodian on behalf of that minor. The student's social security number is listed and the student is the account owner, but a parent over the age of 18 needs to be the guardian until that student becomes 18 or older. That's a student asset. If you have money in that type of account, it's assessed at 20 cents on the dollar. The 529 plan, on the other hand, is considered a parent asset. Parent assets are assessed at just below 6%. So if the student has money, maybe from birthday gifts, maybe from holiday gifts, whatever the case might be. And if the parent says, well, let's go to the bank, let's open up an account for you. We'll open up in your name and your social security number. Well, in all likelihood, the parent is also going to have to be involved. If the student's name and social security number are listed first, they will receive a 1099 for any interest that is earned. And in many cases, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and in some cases, the student will have to fill out a tax return. The FAFSA asks those questions. In the parent section, they're going to say, you, the parent, how much do you have in savings and investments? And that includes bank accounts, certificates of deposits, mutual funds, and other investments, and including real estate. In the student section of the FAFSA, it will ask, does the student have any assets in their name? If your student went to work, saved money, and the parent took them to the bank and opened this type of account, it's a student asset, 20 cents on the dollar. If you, the parent, decided to open up a 529 plan, then that money is assessed at a much lower rate, 5.64%. So to your question, the 529 count is a parent asset. It is assessed at a lower rate than if it were held in a student's name. And the parent assets, remember, are subject to that age-based allowance. Parents, the older of the two, at the age of 50, first 50,000 is excluded. Add an extra $1,100 to $1,200 for every year beyond the age of 50. So in many cases, the 529 account does not factor in. As I mentioned, secondary investments in real estate do. Now, something I'll mention also about the FAFSA. FAFSA excludes your primary residence. So I'll make up a number, Jennifer. Suppose that you and your husband, if you're married, owns a house worth $1 million, you have no mortgage. They're not going to ask you that question on the FAFSA. So the Department of Education in the school, in the case of filling out the FAFSA, is not going to know that you live in $1 million house with no mortgage. The FAFSA is not going to ask you about your retirement account, whether it's an IRA, whether it's a 401k, whether it's a 403b in the case of a teacher. Any qualified retirement account is not counted in your savings and investments. Parents make that mistake though. And I'm going to throw a quick warning out, especially Monica, who already started working on the FAFSA. If you were asked that question earlier, because you started working on the FAFSA and it asked you what your savings and investments are, remember, many families, the concentration of their wealth is in their retirement account. You do not have to list it on the FAFSA. It is excluded. The one other item that is excluded also is a small business. Small business owners can be structured in the form of a sole proprietorship, and they typically file their taxes on Schedule C of their 1040, which is a personal tax return. Other folks who have a business might file it as a general partnership using the 1065 form, or as a corporation using the 1120 or the 1120S in the case of a sub-S corporation. There are a lot of opportunities for self-employed individuals. And the reason I say that, because if I took you back to the screen where the tax return is, you're going to see that on line 1, it's going to ask you what your W-2 wages are. W-2 wages is if you're employed and you get a weekly paycheck or several paychecks in the course of a month, you're going to get you're going to get a W-2 at the end of the year. W-2 tells you or tells the IRS how much money you earn. If you're self-employed, you're going to drop down to line 8. And you're going to get that number from Schedule 1. Schedule 1 on your tax return on your 1040 might include rental real estate income and royalties. It might include money that you receive via K-1 if you're a corporation or a general partnership. If for a moment you're on a Schedule C, the number comes in from that direction. But that number can be a gain or a loss. That's why I love self-employed individuals. Self-employed individuals have a great opportunity to reduce their adjusted gross income, their line 11. That line 11, which is downloaded through the data retrieval tool with the parent's ID and password. If we can get that number down, we're presented with a great opportunity. Now, looking again at line 1 on the tax return, those are your W-2 wages. Line 2 is your interest income. Line 3 is your dividend income from any stocks or mutual funds that you may own, not in your IRA or 401k, stocks that you own with your general savings. Remember, do not list any monies that are in your retirement account. So I would suggest real quick that if there are folks out there who are self-employed, we should talk. Now, again, if you're a senior parent, there's not a whole lot you can do because 2021 is already completed and filed. 2022 is almost done. So even if we could change something to make you appear a little or owed some financial aid, it would affect their junior year because of the 2-year prior type of rule. Good. I'm going to go on to.
We have a couple more questions.
Go right ahead. I'm here to answer them.
All right. Go down the line. Adam, are you available?
I am.
All right, awesome. So we're ready to go.
If you're a co-signer on a parent's checking account, do you have to list that? Like,
okay, are you saying if you're the student and you're a co-signer?
No, I'm a co-signer on my mother's account.
Okay, so the way that it works, Adam, is again, whose ever name the account is in and whose ever social security number is listed. And I'm going to say listed first is the person who will receive a 1099 for any interest that is earned or any dividends that are paid. So if your mother or father have an account and you're a co-signer, simply for the opportunity to help them, God forbid something should happen, your social security number is not listed as a primary account owner. If the account reads your dad and your mom, John and Mary, joint tenants with the rights of survivorship, your dad's social is listed first. So at the end of the year, you're going to receive a 1099, or John's going to receive the 1099, not your mom. His number is listed first. You as a co-signer tells the bank that you are authorized to write a check against the account, but nowhere, no how is it on anyone's radar. And you do not and should not list any of the value of the assets in your parents' account.
Thank you.
Another question?
Yeah, actually, we have a bunch more. So I'm
Go
going
right
to just
ahead.
scroll through them all.
Yep.
Suzanne, are you all right?
Thank God, I didn't know it was coming to me yet. I had a question in regards to, sorry, I have a lot of questions. The 529, you had mentioned that if the student was 18.
No.
What does that change? Because
it doesn't change. Suzanne, let's back up for a minute. The UGMA account or the UTMA account is a student asset listed under the student social security number, and before the age of 18, a parent or an adult must be named as the custodian of that account. As soon as the student turns 18, the UGMA account becomes the student's money. Now, switch gears, 529 account. 529 would be listed as Suzanne Dutch. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I apologize.
It's Deutsch, but that's okay.
Deutsch.
No worries.
Okay. So the account would read Suzanne Deutsch, 529 account for the benefit of Joey Deutsch. And what would happen is this: it's your account. And the interest that is earned in that account is not going to be taxable as long as you distribute the money from that account to pay a higher education expenses. Joey goes to school, gets 100% free ride. You say, take Joey's name off. He's no longer the beneficiary. He doesn't need the money. Let's name my daughter Mary as the beneficiary of the account. The account still reads Suzanne Deutsch for the benefit of Mary Deutsch, because you changed from Joey to Mary. Joey didn't need the money. You pass it along. It's your money. Now what happens? Joey goes to school. You pay a tuition. You pay room and board. These are called qualified expenses. Higher education qualified expenses. Now, there's certain expenses that you're going to incur that are not considered qualified. And what happens at the end of the year? You're going to receive what's called a 1098Q. I'm sorry, 1098T. That's a tuition statement. It is an IRS form. It is sent to you, and it is also sent to the school. It says you paid X amount of dollars in higher education expenses, and you received X amount of dollars in scholarships. You take a distribution from your 529. At the end of the year, they send you a 1099Q, which is a distribution from higher education qualified expenses. You decide to take that entire amount of money from your 529. The accountant is going to put it in his or her worksheet as they prepare your tax return. And they may determine that part of your distribution from your 529 is taxable because you use some of the money for expenses that weren't considered qualified. It's something you have to be extremely cautious about. Many accountants are not, I mean, they're aware of it, but they don't really pay a whole lot of attention because it goes into their software package when they're preparing your taxes. So again, depending on how much you have in this 529, and how you can divide it over the course of 4 or 5 years, the years that your student will be in college, is something you have to budget for so that you don't overdo it, so that it doesn't become taxable. But again, getting back to your initial question, your student can be 18, 19, 20, 25, 30 years old, and you could still use that money in the 529 for the benefit of the student because that money is yours and your son or daughter is named as the Benny. It is only the UGMA and the UTMA account that you have to be concerned with the age of 18.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sandy, are you there?
Yeah, hi, this is Rosa. I just had a quick question about the tax documentation. Do you upload that, or do you have to enter everything in?
Okay, so the data retrieval tool is uploaded from the IRS website using the parent's ID and password. That's why a parent has to have their own ID and password in addition to your student having their own ID and password. Sometimes you're unable to upload that information. Now, again, the FAFSA will ask you a couple of questions. When you get to the parents section, it's going to ask the question, did you, the parent, file a tax return? You're going to be given a choice: already completed, will file, or not expected to file. You're going to select already completed. It might ask you, did you file married filing separately, or did you file a Puerto Rican return? You answer yes to either of those questions. It's going to say you are not able to complete the data retrieval tool. If you select no, I did not file married filing separately or Puerto Rico, it's going to say, would you like to be transferred to the data retrieval tool. You click yes. It's going to say you are now leaving the FAFSA website. You are going to arrive at the IRS landing. It's going to ask you, what address did you provide on your 2021 tax return? You have to be exact. So if you live at 123 East Main Street, but your tax return lists 123 and the letter E, period, Main Street, if you don't list it exactly as it's listed on your tax return, it's going to prevent you from completing the data retrieval tool. And that's why I mentioned it's important to have your tax return handy. Because if you completed the tax return, or whether you had an accountant complete it, you want to know exactly as it's written. If it lists apartment number 1B, is the word apartment abbreviated or is it spelled out? It has to be exact. So the documentation that you're asking about is transferred or uploaded into the FAFSA directly from the IRS website. But it's very, very definite. You have to be precise.
Okay.
And in the case of an extension, if you filed for an extension, maybe you know that the extensions are due October 15th. So there's a little bit less than 2 weeks for you to complete your tax return if you went on an extension. Well, you're filling out the FAFSA now, it's October. The IRS computers don't have that information in the computers, so you're going to have to manually enter from your tax return the numbers that they're asking for.
Okay, so I'm sorry, there was where you said either answer yes or no. I think you said something about married, Mexico, whatever. So if I answer yes to I filed like jointly,
yeah,
then am I taken to the IRS?
Yes, if you've completed your tax return and you submit the answer married filing jointly, or if you file the title head of household. Head of household is a designation for a divorced parent who has a minor child or dependent living at home. So you can be divorced, you'll be considered head of household. You can use a data retrieval tool. You can file a tax return married filing jointly. You can use the data retrieval tool. You and your husband, if you were separated, might choose to file married filing separately. First of all, I don't like that idea. As a certified financial planner, again, I have an expertise in taxes, but I do not prepare tax returns. But married filing separately hurts you. You pay more taxes that way. You're still married, you're living separately, but you don't want the other estranged spouse to know what your numbers are. You're going to pay more taxes, each of you, and you're not going to be able to use the data retrieval tool.
Got it. Okay.
I'm going to make one other statement about divorced and separated. If you remember, I mentioned that the FAFSA doesn't ask for the value or the equity you have in your home. FAFSA doesn't ask for the value of your retirement account, IRA, 401k, 403b, and so on. FAFSA doesn't ask about your small business if you own 50% or more and have under 100 employees. And the FAFSA, very importantly, will only ask about information on what they refer to as the custodial parent. Custodial parent, in the case of a separation or a divorce, the custodial parent is the parent who the student lives with more than the other. So I'll create an example. Mom and dad are separated. Dad earns $250,000, owns a yacht, several houses, but they're separated. Mom is living on whatever child support he's providing her with. Has no assets per se in her name. Very unfair, but if that's the case, Mom is helping the student fill out the FAFSA. Mom is the custodial parent. They're going to ask, what is the parent's income? Zero. Even though dad makes $250,000. What is the assets of the custodial parent? Zero. Even though dad owns a yacht and several houses. So the FAFSA is looking at the custodial parent, either in a separation or a divorce, and handing them the world on a silver platter. This family is going to qualify for a huge amount of financial aid on the federal level. Colleges might feel sorry and dig deep into their pockets with a lot of merit aid because they want that kid to attend if they accept it. So the point that I'm trying to make is the FAFSA is a very forgiving forum. Now, certain things are going to change next year, but this year the opportunity still presents itself.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Shall we move on? Okay. So again, financial aid, free money, loans, and work study. You remember what all three is. A grant is money and never has to be paid back. Loans will come with filling out the FAFSA in the form of a direct federal loan. Freshman student qualifies for $5,500. $3,500 of that, $5,500 are subsidized, no interest, no payments. The other $2,000 unsubsidized at a pretty reasonable rate of interest. I always suggest that families take advantage of that. If someone's going to loan me money without paying interest or at a very low rate, I'll take it anytime. For a sophomore student, it bumps up from $5,500 to $6,500. And for a junior or senior in college, it jumps up to $7,500. If a student completes college in 4 years, they'll graduate with $27,000 in direct federal loans. They don't have to begin making payments until 6 months after they graduate. That's one thing that every one of you can certainly figure on getting from the federal government. And again, your income would have to be extremely low for you to qualify for the Pell Grant, the SEOG grant, and other options.
Oh, we did have another question.
Go right ahead. Jarek, are you there? You have to unmute.
All right. What we'll do is we'll lower that hand, and then we have one other question, Ms. Mitchell.
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't really have a voice. I didn't know I was going to have to speak. I didn't realize I couldn't type in my question, but I have a question about the $50,000 that you said was protected in parent assets. Okay. Everything that I've been reading recently says that those protections are no longer in place. And I was wondering if you knew anything about that.
Okay. So yes, and those are going to take effect in July of 2023.
Okay.
So what you're gonna see, Michelle, is that junior parents, next year they will be seniors in high school, and come October of 2023, they will start working on the FAFSA when many of these changes come into play. Some of the other changes that will occur, Michelle, as I mentioned, custodial household is currently described or defined as where the student lives most of the time. One of the other changes would take effect in July of 23 is the custodial parent will become the parent who claims the student as an exemption on their tax return. There's a couple of other changes. They're drastically reducing the number of questions the FAFSA will ask. And also, as you had mentioned, the way they're going to consider assessing the savings and investments. One of the things that the FAFSA does, if you remember earlier, I'd mentioned that in a family of four, you had an expected family contribution of $25,000 based on the income and the assets of the parents. They had 2 children, but in that case, only one of them was going to be attending college. Suppose they were twins. That $25,000 expected family contribution is what the family is expected to pay for 1 year for one student. Well, if their EFC is $25,000, they're going to cut that number in half in the case of twins or 2 in college. Suppose for a moment that the son was already in college and the daughter was approaching college next year. The answer would have been 2 in college, and that $25,000 EFC would be $12,500 for each student. What they're planning on doing next year is dropping that opportunity. So the 2 in college is still going to reflect at $25,000 per. So some of the stuff you're reading, Michelle, really will take effect next year, but the opportunity still presents itself for this year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Jerica is back. You have to unmute though. Jerry, I can hear you. Can you ask a question?
We can come back, Bob.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So again, Financial aid comes in the form of grants, which is free money, loans, and work study. Work study is the opportunity to work on campus. On the FAFSA, there's going to be a question. Do you want to be considered for work study? I would say check yes. You're not obligated to take a job on campus. If you get approved for work study, you can work on campus. You can interview through the financial aid office on jobs that are posted. Suppose for a moment there's a job opportunity in cafeteria. Too crazy. You don't want to take that job. You don't want to interview for it. Say no, thank you. Suppose they offer a job in the library or in the computer room, changing the paper. You might want to consider taking that job where it's quiet. You can study and you can get paid at the same time for extra spending money. Work study is a good thing. Federal money, that includes, as I said, Pell Grants, SEOG grants. It also includes direct federal loans. It includes work study. State grants or state money is offered for students who are residents of New Jersey and are going to attend a school in the state, whether it's public or private. Very lucrative. A tuition aid grant for families in need. Again, your adjusted gross income would have to be very low for you to qualify. State grants are a good thing. College money, merit aid. That's where we're looking to get the colleges to compete with each other for your son or daughter. Easily done. Add those colleges whether you can afford them or not. Check the websites and see that you want to apply to schools where your son or daughter is going to shine, that their grade point average is going to be over and above what their average incoming class has been in the past. Private scholarships, well, every school holds a scholarship night, typically in the springtime. It is local scholarships offered by civic organizations. If your son or daughter wins a scholarship, they have to report the number that they won to the school, and the school could proportionately reduce the aid that they've already offered you.
Bob, we call that our community scholarships.
Community scholarships. So I'll give you a crazy example though. I'm a member of the Rotary Club, and the Rotary International offers a scholarship annually. I think it's the Rotary District in this case, for a graduate student in certain majors. One year we got a student who applied and was awarded a $25,000 scholarship. Had applied to Oxford University as a graduate student. Because of her excellence, she was awarded a 100% free ride. She won the $25,000 Rotary International Scholarship. She informed Oxford University of that win. They said, okay, good, send us the check. The point being, if you win a local scholarship, good, wonderful. If they give it to you in cash or give it to you directly, the college will not necessarily become aware of it. You really are supposed to report it. But if the scholarship says we're going to send it directly to the college that you're going to be going to, the college is going to know about it, and whatever award that they offer will be reduced by the amount of that money coming in. Private scholarships are good, though, simply because not all schools are going to offer a substantial amount of merit aid. And when a merit aid is offered, it comes in the form of the acceptance letter. So you receive an acceptance letter. Congratulations, Susie. You've been accepted at our school as the incoming class of 2023. And in appreciation for your outstanding academic performance, we're going to give you $10,000 a year in merit aid. And that $10,000 is good every year for 4 years, maintain a B average or better. Well, typically that merit aid package is not going to be reduced by a local scholarship. It's usually the money that is determined to be paid due to need. So do apply for those private scholarships. It can't hurt you. Also consider for a moment that there are higher education tax benefits. Again, the tax benefits are somewhat limited, but they amount to about $4,000. Now, a few years ago, 2018, I think they did a tax reform that eliminated the $4,000 deduction per exemption for every person in your household. And now those exemptions apply to tax benefits, but there is a phase out depending on your adjusted gross income. Individuals and married couples. So in the case of a divorce, we certainly want to try to have the parent who earns less money take the student as the exemption. And I talk to accountants all the time. Accountants are primarily charged with reducing the taxes that you pay. I am charged with helping students qualify for as much financial aid as they possibly can. So we have to coordinate with your accountant if we are going to work together. As I said, if you run into an issue, it's a simple question and answer. I'm looking to answer any question to anyone who calls me. There is no charge, there is no obligation. If it's more complicated, we'll talk about what might be necessary. So the higher education expense, I always will factor that into considering what is financial aid. So again, to Michelle's question, things are changing. So everything I told you about EFC, it's going away. It's going to be replaced by the student aid index. So next year, it'll be the cost of attendance minus the student aid index to determine financial need. And it's going to be calculated slightly with different components and numbers. It's still going to take the cost of attendance, which includes all in and so on and so forth. Perhaps next year you'll all be in attendance if you're not already a senior parent. And we'll talk a little bit more about those changes. Federal financial aid is calculated based on a dependent freshman. Now, dependent freshman is a freshman who has a parent who they're supported by. Independent students qualify for their own financial aid if they can prove they're independent. What makes a student independent? If you're married, if you have a child, if you're pregnant, if you're in the military, if you're deemed a ward of the state, or if you're considered homeless or soon to be homeless, you can be considered an independent student. Independent student, if you can prove it, will go to school literally for free. Dependent student, you need your parent to have an ID and a password. It's the parent's savings and investments and the parent's income that are going to determine financial aid. But again, federal Pell Grant, that number's increased from 6,400 to about 7,000, just shy of 7. SEOG grant is still 4,000. Teach grant, federal work study has a certain cap on it, and the student as a freshman receives 3,500 subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized, and it goes up from there. Senior parents, you know the most important thing you got to do is at least get the ball rolling. You need to get an ID and a password. ID and a password, again, if you have not gotten it through the FAFSA.gov website, where you select the second drop down, the second box down that says create an ID, you can always go into the FSCID.gov. See about the middle of the screen, it says creating IDs and password is easy, going to www.fsaid.ed.gov. Click on the create. Make sure that you have your own email address. Parent, student has their own email address. You're using parent's social security number for the parent's ID, student's social security number, date of birth, and so on. You'll receive a secure code in the process. It's very easy to do. So I'm going to change gears a little bit, but Sandy, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. So the merit aid, are they, do you know about that once you're accepted from a college? So you're not applying for merit aid.
You do not.
Okay, so they basically give it to you if you've been accepted to the college.
The letter of acceptance that you'll receive, whether it comes in letter form or email, will say, congratulations on your acceptance to ABC University. In appreciation for your outstanding academic achievements, we are offering you $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year, every year for 4 years, maintain a B average and be a full-time student. Again, look at it this way, Sandy. These schools, again, they're in competition for your son or daughter. You send out 10 applications, you receive 10 acceptances. You have until May 1st. Remember the number at the second slide, that red May 1st deadline date. May 1st is the day that your son or daughter has to decide what school they're going to And if the school who's already accepted your son or daughter doesn't hear from you by May 1st, they're going to give the seat away to somebody else. So not only does that demonstrate how much in competition these schools are for your son or daughter. Remember, your son or daughter applies to 10 schools, get accepted to all 10. They're holding up a seat at every one of those 10 universities, waiting and praying that your son or daughter says yes. They incentivize you by giving you a merit aid offer. So when they send out a congratulations and appreciation for your academic achievement, they're simply saying, please come. We're going to make it affordable. Please come. So a school that gives you an acceptance will do anything and everything in its power to make it happen. An accepted student literally walks on water. An accepted student, a parent can call the financial aid office or the admissions office and say, let me tell you about what's going on. And they'll listen. But if you were to call them before being an accepted student, they're not going to want to hear from you. They receive 25,000 applications. And if every one of those parents were to call, they wouldn't be able to function. But if they accept 3,000 or 4,000 students out of 25,000 applications, and you're one of those accepted students, you make a phone call, you get on the phone with the right person, they're going to talk to you, they're going to listen, and they're going to do whatever is necessary. You call them and say, hey, listen, the tax return that you're basing this financial aid package on is 2021. Well, guess what? Both parents came down with COVID. Or my father's income dropped drastically because the company he was working for went out of business because of COVID. Or my dad got sick. Medical bills are enormous. Insurance didn't pay for them all. We have huge debt that we weren't able to display on the FAFSA. Remember, it's 2021 numbers. So you're talking to the school as an accepted student. That school doesn't want to wait till May 1st. That school will say, what can we do for you? There is a form that is called Change in Family's Financial Circumstances. It's kind of an appeal. And that appeal is the opportunity for you to state what's going on, what has happened. 2021, both parents were alive, one of them passed away. Things change. The FAFSA doesn't ask for those changes. You have to step forward and let them know. So the idea, getting back to the question, where does the merit aid get offered? It gets offered on the acceptance. And once your son or daughter is accepted, you can call them for anything and everything, and they'll do whatever they have to do to make it work because they don't want to be beat out by one of the other schools. You can even say to them, guess what? I love your $10,000 merit aid offer, but it still makes the net cost for my student to attend your school a little bit more expensive than some of the other schools she was accepted at. The school might say, send us copies of those acceptance letters, and then we'll decide what to do. And they'll add to that package. That's where the schools are competing, and that's the game you got to play.
Got it. So just one really other quick question. When you mentioned the private community scholarships, where do you find out about those?
Guidance office.
Guidance office, okay.
Hey, Bob, it's Mike.
Yep.
We have about 10 minutes. If I know we might have to edit.
Okay.
We're planning on a junior parent thing later in the spring.
Okay, so let me go a little bit faster. So now there's about 4,700 to 4,800 colleges and universities in the U.S. All of them want to see the FAFSA. About 10% of those schools, about 400 to 450 of those schools will ask for an additional form. It is not the federal form. It is the institutional form called the CSS profile. CSS profile, you tap into that by going to collegeboard.org, which is the same website that you go to or that you went to for your son or daughter to take the PSAT and the SAT. So each of them already has a username and an ID. Let's talk about the CSS profile compared to the FAFSA. I mentioned to you that the FAFSA only looks at custodial parent, whether it's a divorce or a separation. Custodial parent provides only their information. CSS profile will have the custodial parent fill out the custodial CSS profile form, and then it will ask you to fill out the non-custodial parent profile form. So they're going to ask information about both divorced or separated, doesn't matter. FAFSA doesn't want to know about the equity in your home. CSS Profile wants to know when you bought it, how much you paid, how big is your mortgage, what is your monthly payment. FAFSA doesn't ask about your retirement assets, IRA, 401k, 403b, or any defined benefit or defined contribution plan. CSS Profile wants to know what you have in your IRA. How many IRAs do you have? What is each of them worth? What is your 401k worth? CSS Profile is going to ask about the family business. FAFSA, I said to you, 50% ownership, 100 employees or less. FAFSA doesn't ask. The CSS Profile might even now ask you, do any of your brothers or sisters have money in their names? Point I'm trying to make is CSS Profile is a lot more intensive. If you apply to 10 colleges, in all likelihood, 2 or 3 of them are going to be CSS Profile schools. It's not a bad thing. They have deeper pockets, but they want to be more careful in how they distribute the money. Another thing the CSS Profile does, it gives you an opportunity to write an explanation of financial concerns, the ES section. ES section allows you to write 2,000 characters, explain any circumstances that we should know about to help us to understand what's happened in your family. Because these schools not only receive the FAFSA, but they also receive the CSS Profile. FAFSA is free. CSS Profile comes at a cost. Your first FAFSA, or excuse me, your first profile student aid report, $25. Actually, if you break it down, it's $9 to fill out the application and $16 for every school you send a copy to. In some cases, if your income is low, they will give you a fee waiver and you won't have to pay. So again, custodial parent and non-custodial parent as opposed to the FAFSA. Family businesses, they want to know about home equity, assets that in your siblings' names, retirement accounts, they all come into place. Remember the deadlines. Don't miss a deadline. Every school is going to list their priority filing deadline. If you have 10 schools, 12 schools, 15 schools, get to every one of those websites and learn what their deadlines are. Don't miss it. Again, you access the profile through collegeboard.org. I think, Michael, I'm going to provide you with a copy of this slide set so parents can review it as they need be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, New Jersey State Aid. Again, attend a school in the state of New Jersey, public or private, be a New Jersey resident. You finish the FAFSA, and there's going to be a tab that says, click here to complete your state application. This is an old screenshot, but this is an example. Submitted the FAFSA, it's going to say, congratulations, your FAFSA has been submitted. Click here to complete your state financial aid package. It takes you to the HESA website, Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, HESAA.org. HESA is going to possibly award a tuition aid grant. It can be very lucrative. As an example, and the numbers have increased since last year, but take a look at Rowan, Rutgers, and NJIT at the bottom. If you're a family in need, go to a school in the state of New Jersey, and it's going to vastly increase the amount of money you could wind up with. New Jersey Stars, student in the top 15% of the graduating class goes to school at a community college for free for 2 years. The guidance department can tell you more about that. Something new to the 529 savings plan in the state of New Jersey, it's called NJ Best. Now, I am securities licensed. I am insurance licensed. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm an expert at most anything that a family's financial picture looks like. I can sell a family a 529, but I would not sell a 529 and make a commission, because I think that every penny is needed to pay for college. Also, if you have a 529, you're contributing annually, stop. Your kids are now in high school. There's not enough time to recover from a market drop. Look what's going on in the market and the economy right now. You can become devastated. You might have had enough money saved for college. Your 529 is devastated. You put more money in. If you bought it through a bank or a brokerage firm, you're paying them a 4%, 4% commission. Don't do it anymore. If you wanted to put money in and try to qualify for that higher education, if you wanted to put more money in and qualify for that $10,000 resident New Jersey tax return deduction, do it directly under the NJ Best website. There's no bank, there's no brokerage firm, there's no commission involved. I'd be happy to direct you. Again, I can get paid and make money by selling it, but I won't refuse to. Everything that goes on can be for higher education expenses, the bottom of the screen, publication 970. You can Google it, you can get a copy, and you can figure out what the qualified expenses are. Don't take more money out of your 529 than meets the qualified expense number. Otherwise, it'll be taxable. I mentioned before, and I'm wrapping up now, you have an accepted student, communicate with the college. Tell them anything and everything. Don't hesitate. I'll give you a quick story. My younger daughter, Alyssa, wanted to go to film school. The Ithaca College Park School was her dream school. The Park School has a film major. She wanted to go there. She only applied to 4 other schools, all in film. She heard from every school and was accepted at every school, hadn't heard from Park. Remember that May 1st deadline I gave you? Sometime in the late part of April, I said to Alyssa, call the school. Tell them you're interested. You know, they want you. They want to know if they accept you, you're going to come. Call them and tell them you'd come if they accepted you. She wouldn't do it. I was very bold and I did it. I'm not going to say it's going to work for you, but I did. I called the school. This is Bob Traits. My daughter, Alyssa, applied. She wants to go to the Park School. She wants to be a film major. And she said, well, that's very nice, Mr. Traits, but we get 12,000 applicants to the Park School film major. And we can only accept 50 students. And I can tell you honestly that she's not one of the top 50. I can accept her at Ithaca, but not as a film major. And I said, no, she'll go somewhere else. I waited till about May 2nd, May 3rd. I called him back. Hi, Bob Traits calling again regarding Alyssa. Hi, Mr. Traits. How's Alyssa doing? She's doing great. Any chance that one of those 50 students you accepted wound up not coming? Silence on the phone. The admissions officer said, would she still come if we sent her an acceptance? I said, yes. I said, we put some money up for her to go to Hofstra, but she would come. Well, what they did is they wanted to know how much we put up to go to Hofstra. They met that in the form of financial aid. They accepted her, and she's doing great. Communicate with the financial aid office. Let them know if there was an illness. Let them know if there's a medical expenses. Let them know if a family member, let's say you took in a parent. Let's say you lost your bonus. Let's say you lost a job. There's a lot that can go on. I'm going to kind of wrap up here. Remember, senior parents, go out and get that ID and a password. Start working on the FAFSA. You don't need to complete it the first week. You can intend on getting it done maybe by the end of the month, or let's say by the middle of November. Look for priority filing deadlines. Call me if you need me. I'm here to answer the questions. I'm here to help you. Most of the questions I get asked are answered with a quick 2 or 3 sentences, just like the answers I'm giving right here and now. If there is an opportunity, a great opportunity for you or for me to change your world and drastically help, again, this is my expertise in this area I can help you with. Thank you all for attending. And we've been asking questions throughout, so I think we need to wrap it up here.
Which is perfect. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. I know the parents appreciate very much. You're a wealth of information as always. Appreciate access to the PowerPoint as well. And yeah, if there are any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your child's counselor. We're here for any needs specifically with seniors. Obviously, the major focus is transitioning them out, and this is a big part of it. So don't hesitate. Call us, email us. We'll connect you with Bob if needed. And we'll have access as well. So thank you everybody for coming, and enjoy the day off tomorrow.
Good. Thank you. And again, my information will be on the slides. Call me at need. Take care.